I invented the cell phone for the first time. This is a quote from the scientist and the inventor of the cell phone, Martin Cooper. Check it out. What's the biggest function of a cell phone? What does a cell phone do for humanity? It makes people more productive. Wireless is freedom. It's about being unleashed from the telephone cord, and having the ability to be virtually anywhere when you want to be. Technology has to be invisible, transparent, just simple. If you asked me what the most important thing in my life is, it's learning. What else is there in life, but to accomplish things and to do things? Sure, I like to be on a beach on occasion, I like to ski on occasion, but as long as I have the ability to make a contribution, I am going to keep going. If you want people to think out of the box, you shouldn't create the box in the first place. The first cell phone design weighed over 1 kilo, and you could only talk for 20 minutes before the battery ran out. Which is just as well, because you would not be able to hold it up for much longer. I'd been taking things apart and inventing things since I was a little kid. I still have memories as a child trying to really understand how things work. We predicted the concept of a telephone that isn't tied to a wall or a desk. We anticipated that everyone would have a cell phone. We joked that when you're born you would be assigned a cell phone, and if you didn't answer you had died. The optimum telephone is one that I think someday is gonna be embedded behind your ear. T's gonna have an extraordinarily powerful computer running the cell phone. Cellular was the forerunner to true wireless communications. People thought I was crazy thinking about a phone you can just put in your pocket. I'm always trying whatever the latest telephone is. I think what's really going to happen is we're going to have a lot of different kinds of phones when our industry grows up, some that are just plain simple telephones. In fact, my wife and I started a company, and she designed the Jitterbug, which is just a simple telephone. I had an iPhone for a while. I gave that to my grandson. Kids are really caught up in that. I got a Motorola Droid that I use. I also have a Jitterbug. I don't want to be the oldest anything in America. Sorry about that. Privacy is a thing of the past. I only live for the future. Just suppose that you could do a physical examination, not every year, which people do and which is almost worthless, but every minute, because you're connected, and because we have devices that you can put on your body, that measure virtually everything on your body. If we don't blow ourselves up, this is going to be a really wonderful world. I think what is going to happen in the future is more customization, more personalization. We all are different, and we ought to be able to customize and have a phone that does exactly what we want it to do, that is so easy to use that we don't even have to think about it. That's what the dream is. If we don't blow ourselves up, this is going to be a really wonderful world. It pleases me no ends to have had some small impact on people's lives, because these phones do make people's lives better. They promote productivity, they make people more comfortable, they make them feel safe, and all of those things. I never really started to carry a cellular phone until It was small enough so I could put it on my belt and not even feel it was there. As I walked down the street while talking on the phone, sophisticated New Yorkers gaped at the sight of someone actually moving around while making a phone call. Remember that in 1973, there weren't cordless telephones, let alone cellular phones. We had no idea that things like Facebook and Twitter, and all these other concepts, would ever happen. Good technology is intuitive. The cell phone forces you to become an engineer. You have to immerse yourself into a product and use it in order to really understand it, and that's why I have a new cell phone every month or two. The future of cellular telephony is to make people's lives better. The most important way, in my view, will be the opportunity to revolutionize healthcare. The technology that lets many people use the same radio channel at the same time is called smart antenna technology or adaptive array technology or interference mitigation. This technology uses computer processors to take the signals from multiple antennas at each location and sorts the various signals out so they don't interfere with each other. People are mobile. They move around, and anytime they want to communicate, if you tie them to the wall or the wires, you're restricting them. You're infringing on their freedom. The more we learn about new communications, the more capacity we need, and that is going to keep going on forever. That's been happening since radio was invented, and that's going to keep going. The first cellular systems didn't become commercially available until 1983. Most of the phones before then were in fact car phones. Bell Labs was a fantastic research organization, but having them create and market new products for the world was terrible. They were not good marketers, and yet it was AT&T engineers who were deciding what the products of the future were. There is no reason why T-Mobile can't be successful on its own, and the only real reason AT&T would want to own T-Mobile is to increase its exclusivity by owning more spectrum. The notion that there's finite spectrum is mostly wrong. Our dream was that someday nobody would talk on a wired telephone. Everybody would talk on a wireless phone. Just think of what a world it would be if we could measure the characteristics of your body when you get sick and transmit those directly to a doctor or a computer. You could get diagnosed and cured instantly and wirelessly. The biggest innovation of all is social networking, and cellular technology is the facilitator for social networking. People are mobile. Social networking is people, and the only way people connect with each other is wirelessly. I do like to get away from technology. I still read a lot. Having said that, most of my reading is on computers or a Kindle or an iPad. Just remember, in 1973, we had no digital cameras, no personal computers, no internet. The thought of putting a billion transistors in a cell phone was ludicrous. There are all kinds of features that will become part of cell phones that will help us offload the more laborious things of life and let us focus on doing the things humans do well, like abstract thinking and creating. When I go skiing, I may carry a phone, but it's there for safety purposes. I'm not one of these guys that reads his email while he's riding up on the chairlift. We did envision that someday the phone would be so small that you could hang it on your ear or even have it embedded under your skin. The only thing I don't like is being called the grandfather of the cell phone, because that makes me a little older than I prefer to be. Of course I have an iPhone and I use that, interestingly enough, mostly for my calendar, because it synchronizes with my calendar. I take pictures with it and I show people pictures of my grandchildren. The instruction manual for my Motorola phone is bigger and heavier than the phone. My favorite example of good technology is the automobile. I travel all over the world, and if I want to drive a car anywhere, I get in and put the key in the ignition, shift out of park and drive. I don't need an instruction manual. Somehow in the last 100 years, every time there is a problem of getting more spectrum, there is a technology that comes along that solves that problem. Every 2.5 years, every spectrum crisis has gotten solved, and that's going to keep happening. I have a mantra that people are naturally, fundamentally, and inherently mobile. I use Verizon. My wife uses Cellular. I also have an AT&T phone for the car. It doesn't take a cell phone to make a person rude. But people are learning. There are rude people all over the place. I have never heard a cell phone ring in the movies. We are going to learn how to live with the advantages of new technology. The public doesn't adopt radical concepts very quickly. My wife has forced me to wear designer jeans, and I find there must be 200 or 300 different kinds of jeans you can wear, all of which are made out of denim and look roughly the same. People are different. They have different tastes. Cell phones ought to be the same. I think that wireless has the opportunity to solve a whole bunch of problems, including, I believe, world poverty. My rule is, if you want to build something that does all things for all people, it's not going to work real well. Even though you can't get along without your smartphone, there are not many essential services on your smartphone. They're mostly convenience. You could live without it. Essential means you die without it. A gadget that warns you are about to have a heart attack, that's essential. We're about to go into that phase with smartphones. We all know how tough children are with toys. It turns out grown-ups are much worse. Cellular companies don't innovate, they just buy more spectrum. I think projects often fail because people do not have a clear understanding at the start what they are trying to deliver. I think if you have a big enough wallet you can solve anything, but the key is to solve it with the least amount of expenditure. We thought our vision was right, which was that someday everyone would be walking around carrying phones with them. The best technology is when you are free to do what you want. We should be focused on how to make people's lives better. That is the purpose of technology. WhatsApp is one of those rare breakthroughs that recognizes that the so-called battery problem in wireless devices is solved with a charging solution that is transparent to the user. The cell phone with a dead battery can become a relic of the past. I think young people don't appreciate that when you are in your 70s, you'll lose patience for techie stuff, and you may decide that you want a simple device. As soon as I get a typical day, I'll know I'm in trouble. I like doing different things all the time. I like to think about the future and how things can be done better than they are now. That's what engineers do. Engineers and entrepreneurs are fundamentally dissatisfied with the way the world is and want to make it better. There are so many things you could do with technology, if you can match it up with real problems. Once you've lived in Del Mar or the San Diego area, why would you want to live anyplace else? T's the neatest place, whether it's the culture or the small town atmosphere the whole San Diego area has. I'm a science fiction fan. All science fiction ends up being reality. I'm at the doctor's office. I'm in the waiting room. And there's this guy on his cell phone, talking really loud. Does he think he owns the place? Apparently. I think this is so offensive, but you have to remember, it doesn't take a cell phone to make people rude. People were rude before there were cell phones. Anyone who dials a phone while driving is flirting with death. And anyone who texts while driving is insane. You should not be a slave to your telephone. The technology is there to serve you, not the other way around. Whatever happened to courtesy? What can be so urgent that you have to look down at your phone in the middle of a dinner conversation with people who matter to you? You can't wait 5 minutes before staring at your phone. What we did with this mobile telephone was create a revolution. Before the mobile phone existed, we were calling a place. Now we are calling a person. When you get involved in a startup, you have to be passionate. I have trouble going to sleep at night, because you always get the feeling that there is another thing you could do. The only thing that was in my mind when we made that first phone call was, is it going to work? We had all these parts hand soldered together, engineers standing by with a soldering iron, just in case. Given a choice, people will demand the freedom to communicate, wherever they are, unfettered by the infamous copper wire. There were a lot of naysayers over the years. People would say, why are we spending all of this money? Are you sure this cellular thing will turn out to be something? A telephone number shouldn't represent a home or a car or a restaurant, but instead a person. Thanks for watching this video. If you like our video, don't forget to subscribe and like. Who do you think is the best character? Shall we make a video quote? If you have any suggestions or feedback, please write them in the comments below. Thank you.